The morning started wrong from the very first step. The sky was low and overcast, the kind that looks like it might snow, but the forecast hadn't said anything. Montana has a habit of not warning you. I went in anyway. I'd spent 2 days following tracks that didn't make sense. They weren't elk, weren't bear. The impressions were deep and uneven, with strides too long for anything I knew. I thought for a moment someone might be messing with me, but out there, no one bothers. I moved slowly through dense fir trees. The forest was quiet in an uncomfortable way. No birds, not even the usual snap of small branches. The air smelled wrong. Not rotten, just sour, like old sweat mixed with mud. I stopped more than once just to listen. Every time I did, I felt that pressure in my chest that doesn't come from fear, but from instinct. I saw it all at once, less than 50 meters away. It stepped out from behind a rocky formation, crossing a small clearing. It happened so fast, my mind refused to accept it at first. It was huge, not wide like a bear, but tall and solid, with long arms hanging in a way that looked unnatural. Its dark hair was matted and filthy. It wasn't running, it moved with heavy, deliberate steps, like it didn't need to hide. I raised the rifle on reflex. Training took over before thought. I aimed at the torso, not because I believed it was a normal animal, but because I didn't know what else to do. The world narrowed to the sight and that mass moving in front of me. I fired. The sound bounced through the trees and came back multiplied. The recoil jolted my shoulder. I saw clearly as the round hit its left side. It didn't fall. It didn't even stagger the way anything alive should. It stopped dead and turned toward me. That's when the fear really arrived. The face wasn't human, but it wasn't animal either. The eyes were deep set, dark, and locked on me. There was no confusion, no pain. It took one step forward, then another. The ground trembled slightly with each one. I fired again, this time higher. The second hit did affect it. It grunted. Not a roar, something low and deep that I felt in my chest more than in my ears. It stepped back once and slammed an arm into a tree. The bark peeled away like it was soft. That's when I understood I didn't stand a chance. I backed up without lowering the rifle. I caught my foot on a root and almost went down. I didn't fire again. I'll admit it, that was fear. I knew more shots would only make things worse. The forest felt like it was leaning in on us. The smell was unbearable now, warm and close. The creature didn't follow me. It stood there a few more seconds, breathing hard, then turned and disappeared into the trees, faster than I expected something that big could move. The sound of its steps faded quickly, like the ground swallowed them. I stood there shaking, the rifle still raised. My hands hurt from gripping it so tight. The silence slowly returned, but it wasn't the same. I found blood where the rounds hit, dark, thick. I didn't follow it. Common sense told me that would be a terrible idea. I went back to camp without looking over my shoulder. I never reported what happened. No one would have believed me. I still hunt, but not in that area. And every time the woods go too quiet, I remember those eyes. That day, I went out without much motivation. Not to hunt, just to walk. Sometimes you go into the woods more out of habit than for any real reason. I left the truck where I always do and followed a faint trail on foot, the kind that exists because people have walked it often, not because it's marked. I moved calmly. I stopped several times to check the ground. Old tracks, nothing fresh. Mixed footprints, poorly defined. At one point, I sat on a fallen log to adjust my boot. That's when I noticed the forest felt off. I kept walking along the edge of an area where the trees were more spread out. I came to a small clearing where the grass grew tall. I thought maybe some animal would cross, so I stayed still for a while. Several minutes passed and nothing appeared, just the distant sound of something hitting wood spaced out, like someone breaking thick branches. It caught my attention, but not enough to worry me. In the woods, there are always sounds that never fully make sense. I started walking again, drifting a little off the trail. The ground began to slope gently downward. I caught a strong smell, hard to describe. It wasn't rotten, it was heavy. I thought it might be a large animal. I stopped again, looked around. Nothing. I adjusted the rifle on my shoulder and kept going, more carefully. That's when I heard clear footsteps, one after another, snapping dry twigs. They were coming from ahead, not very far. I hid behind a tree, waited. The sound stopped. A few long seconds passed. Then it started again, closer this time, but off to the side. I felt that uncomfortable tingling along my back that comes when you know you're not alone. It took a while to see it. First, I noticed movement between the trunks, something dark shifting slowly. I thought it was a bear until it stood up fully. That's when I understood it wasn't. It was big, tall. It walked upright without effort. Its body was covered in uneven hair. It moved calmly. It took a moment before it looked at me. I was frozen, holding my breath. I could feel my pulse in my ears. When it turned its head and saw me, it was quick, a short glance. It stayed still for a second, breathing hard. I could hear that clearly. The smell came back stronger. I didn't move. I didn't raise the weapon. I didn't even think about it. Then it continued on its way. It turned and went into the trees, slowly fading from view. It disappeared the same way it had appeared. I stayed there a long time without moving. When everything started to sound normal again, I took a deep breath and looked at the ground. There were deep marks where it had stepped and bent branches. I went back to camp in silence. I didn't know who I could tell this to. Something like that changes your life, and to this day, I'm still afraid to go hunting alone in the woods. I was tracking a deer at dusk when the light stops being useful for judging distance and everything flattens out. The ground sloped down into a shallow hollow filled with low brush and fallen logs. There was no wind. I moved carefully, placing the ball of my foot first, listening to the dry soil give way under my weight. The animal I was following had passed through recently. The tracks were fresh, uneven, a sign it had been moving in a hurry. It wasn't running in a straight line. It kept changing direction, like something had unsettled it. That caught my attention because there were no clear signs of common predators in the area. No cougar tracks, no indication of bear. I crouched behind a cluster of bushes when I heard a sharp sound, like a thick branch snapping. It didn't come from the deer, it came from farther ahead, from the opposite slope. I froze. The silence that followed felt wrong, like the surroundings had paused. Then, I saw it. It didn't appear suddenly. It was already there, blended into the terrain, moving low. I didn't grasp its size at first because it stayed crouched, using the ground to its advantage. It had a compact shape and moved in a way I'd never seen in any animal, living or dead. It used its arms for support, but not like an ape. It was closer to how a human runner moves through obstacles. The deer stepped into the open without noticing. It stopped for barely a second, lifted its head, tested the air. It didn't have time to react. The creature burst from cover with brutal speed. There was no long chase, just a few meters, a single leap. The impact was solid. The deer went down on its side, kicking awkwardly at the air. The sound it made when it hit the ground was hollow. Bigfoot, there's no other way for me to call it, lunged for the animal's neck and locked it with both arms. There was no prolonged struggle. It was fast. I watched from above, frozen, forcing myself not to make a sound. The creature straightened partially and scanned the area before dragging the body toward thicker cover. Its posture was upright. The deer's body looked light by comparison. When it twisted its torso, the low light caught old scars in the skin beneath the hair, pale lines that spoke of past fights, of a long, hard life in that environment. It made no unnecessary noise. It pulled the carcass out of sight and vanished into the vegetation, leaving the disturbed ground behind. It took me several minutes to move. When I finally went down into the clearing, it was empty. But there were signs that it had been real, not something I imagined. Torn soil, broken branches at an unusual height, a deep trail leading uphill. Since that day, whenever I see a deer moving nervously for no clear reason, I remember that scene. I left before dawn, like always. The air was cold and dry, the kind of cold that doesn't bite but settles deep into your bones. Montana wakes up slowly. There are no sharp sounds, just a silence that seems to stretch between the pines. I walked for nearly an hour, following a shallow creek. The water didn't move fast, barely brushing the stones, leaving a dull, steady sound. It helped cover my steps. I wasn't looking for anything unusual. I'd been following deer tracks since the day before. Clear prints, well-defined in the hardened mud. Everything made sense. Maybe too much. I noticed it when the forest began to feel off, not different to the eye, but like something had shifted without me being able to point to what. The smell came first. It wasn't a dead animal or normal dampness. It was heavier, old, like wet hair. I stopped. I clicked the safety off the rifle without really thinking about it. Not out of fear, just habit. The wind was coming straight at me, so whatever was there would have been catching my scent too. I saw it as I crossed a small rise. Not suddenly, not like in the stories. It was partially swallowed by the shade of the trees. Big, taller than any man I know. The body wasn't lean, it was heavy, compact. The dark hair didn't shine, it absorbed the light. It didn't move fast. It walked with a strange calm, like it knew there was no reason to hurry. I didn't raise the weapon, not because I hesitated, but because I couldn't find a place to aim. There was no aggressive posture, no obvious curiosity either. It was moving diagonally away from the creek. Each step pressed into the soft ground with a dull, solid sound. Real, impossible to confuse with an elk or a bear. The shape of the legs didn't match anything I'd seen before. At one point it stopped, turned its head slightly. It didn't look at me directly, but I knew it was aware of me. There was no tension, no challenge, just a pause. The air felt heavy, like the forest was holding its breath with me. Then it kept walking. It slipped between the trees and vanished without any extra noise, as if the woods had taken it back in. I stood still for nearly a minute. The smell faded slowly. The creek returned to its normal sound. When I looked at the ground, the tracks were there. Deep, uneven, spaced too far apart. I didn't follow them. I didn't hunt anything that day. I went back to camp earlier than planned. I didn't feel triumph or terror, just an uncomfortable certainty. I had seen something that didn't need to be seen, and yet it had been there long before me.